A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Survival of No Limits. And well, it's now time to move on to one less than 100 episodes of Survival of No Limits. We're still in the first season, but yet here we are. We're going to be going through automotive rollovers. In case you had not already noticed, my primary mode of transportation is one of several loaner vehicles that I have, basically temporary cars that I am using until I can have the money to buy myself my own vehicle with my own insurance coverage and my own, well, registration put together. Primarily, it's a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4, four-wheel drive, put down on a 2001 Grand Cherokee Laredo. And you have seen this thing way too many times to count over the past 2 years. And as a result of that, I will say for sure that being one of many cars that I have driven and one that I have in fact owned under my own care, it certainly is without a doubt that, of course, one of these days I'm bound to have my own vehicle. Maybe it could even be next week, as I was originally promised by my financing. But at this point, it still is worth noting that the 2001 Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4, which I have parked somewhere out there, it does possess a lot of risks, primarily for the fact that it is exactly 20 years old. And as a result, it does in fact have quite a few things wrong with it. It's an SUV, so you can guarantee that it has Hummer level gas guzzling inside of the fuel tank. And that can in fact be determined by the fact that many years ago, under the original owner, of course, it did have at least 400 miles registered onto, well, the gauge that does determine how many miles that it has approximately in terms of fuel inside the tank, whereas nowadays, as I look at it, it doesn't go anywhere higher than 280 miles. And that can, of course, be explained. Lots of these parts are wearing down, degrading, old, and of course this thing's not going to perform as well because of this for the most part, but on the flip side, it still does work perfectly well for a 20-year-old vehicle that has had so much usage over the past 2 decades. It really shows quite a lot of proof that you can still use this Americanized piece of steel and carbon fiber no matter what you can offer with this thing. But if there is one specific hazard that I might as well address on this thing, it's the rollover risk. Yes, this is one of a few vehicles that happens to have top heaviness built into it. Its design is of course constructed with a few different components, mostly including different alloys and carbon fiber as a way to help reduce weight. But whenever you have it built top heavy-ish, then of course this presents a bit of a rollover risk. Physics will indeed show that whenever a vehicle or other object that is about to make a very, very sharp turn at such a very high speed, then it is guaranteed to flip over because of this certain balance reduction as well as weight distribution that gets pressed on because of certain levels of forces. Of course, this is both Newton's laws and the usage of various other laws in science. But furthermore, this does in fact allow for the Jeep itself to roll over if going at such a high speed and then turning at such a very sharp turn. This of course can very much devastate this vehicle by ways of flipping over, which could in fact shatter the windows or crush the rooftop or even destroy the engine, or many other things could indeed be wrong with it. So when that comes to mind, what I got to say about that is simply put, be wary of the rollover risk signs in which you can find in certain parts of the car. In the Grand Cherokee, there is in fact a higher rollover risk sticker, which does in fact depict a car from the front side angle, a picture of it flipping over pretty much. And the reason why that is because the Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4 is in fact constructed from various alloys in carbon fiber, but the fact is that in comparison to the frame and certain parts of the lower side work, the top higher sides of the work, including the doors, roof, and hood, are all lined with metal alloys for reinforcement and protection. And with this in mind, because of the weight that's on the top wise, whereas there's not as much on the bottom, this reduces the level of stability. And as a result, the top heaviness is going to guarantee a higher risk of rollover. And when that happens, then well, I could expect that thing to go down in flames. Considering the way I've driven that thing, it's almost guaranteed to not happen. Unless of course done at a very specific point. If I were to probably go above 70 and then maybe make a turn at above 78 degrees, then maybe it might roll over in such a way. So with that in mind, rollover risks are indeed not a laughing matter by any means. And even though I've never rolled over the Jeep ever in the nearly 2 years that I've had this thing in my possession, it still is worth noting that anything could happen with this thing. I know I've had a few things go on with that thing alone since day one in January 2020, but the thing is that since day one, I have been driving that thing like it is in fact my own. And when something like that's about to happen, then I know I can have the trust guaranteed by other people to have me drive other cars, but more importantly to be a good influence to those who are wanting to have higher safety measures be exerted out on all types of automobiles. And so, with that in mind, that's going to conclude this little chapter right here, because there's still 5 more to go. And with that in mind, let's just keep on going right here, because I just cannot wait to talk about many other things that are indeed involved. So if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.